Number 1. Ali Abulaban, known online as Jinn Kid. He was once known for making people laugh with quick impressions and comedy skits. But behind the polished videos and nearly 1 million followers, Ali Abulaban was hiding something darker. In October 2021, his public persona as the TikTok comedian Jinn Kid collided with a private life full of jealousy, rage, and obsession. What began as a story of online fame ended in 2 people dead, a trial that shocked California, and a sentence that ensures he will never walk free again. Ali Abulaban was born in 1995 and grew up in Virginia before moving to San Diego, California. For years, he worked small jobs while chasing the dream of becoming a full-time entertainer. TikTok became his platform of choice. Under the name Jinn Kid, Ali built a following with impersonations of Tony Montana from Scarface, quick sketches about everyday life, and lighthearted comedy bits that spread rapidly through the app. His fan base grew to nearly 1 million followers, and in the world of TikTok, that kind of number can change a person's life. To his viewers, Ali was a rising digital star with a young family and a future in entertainment. To those closest to him, however, the story was not nearly as bright. Behind the scenes, Ali's marriage to his wife Anna was falling apart. Friends later testified that their relationship had become turbulent, marked by arguments, jealousy, and distrust. By 2021, Anna had separated from him and was trying to build a new life, though she remained in contact because of their young daughter. While she wanted distance, Ali struggled to let go. Instead of focusing on his online career, he grew consumed with watching Anna's every move. That obsession would soon turn deadly. On October 21st, 2021, Anna was at her San Diego apartment with a male friend, a man she had recently grown close to. Unbeknownst to her, Ali had secretly installed a listening device on his daughter's iPad, allowing him to eavesdrop on the apartment whenever he wanted. That afternoon, Ali listened in and believed he heard Anna with another man. Enraged, he grabbed a gun, drove to the complex, and let himself inside. Within moments, he shot both Anna and her friend at point-blank range. The act was swift, brutal, and fueled by jealousy. After the shootings, Ali fled the apartment but did not attempt to cover his tracks. In fact, he called his mother and admitted what he had done, telling her he had hurt Anna. He even picked up his daughter from school before being arrested later that day by San Diego police. The arrest ended the short career of an influencer whose digital fame had hidden deep personal turmoil. The case quickly became national news, dubbed by some outlets as the TikTok murders. Investigators uncovered how Ali had been monitoring Anna through the iPad, revealing just how calculated his surveillance had become. Prosecutors described him as controlling, jealous, and consumed by a need to dominate his estranged wife. Forensic evidence, combined with his own admissions, left little doubt as to what happened that afternoon. When the trial began, the courtroom was packed. Prosecutors charged him with 2 counts of first-degree murder, alongside enhancements for using a firearm. The defense tried to argue that Ali acted in the heat of passion, but the jury was not persuaded. The evidence of premeditation, the hidden listening app, his drive to the apartment, and his decision to bring a loaded weapon was overwhelming. In 2024, after years of proceedings delayed by the pandemic and legal wrangling, the jury found him guilty on all counts. The sentencing hearing was devastating. Family members of the victims gave tearful statements about the lives that had been stolen. The prosecution pushed for the harshest possible punishment, noting the cruelty of Ali's actions and his lack of remorse. The judge agreed. In September 2024, Ali Abulaban was sentenced to 2 consecutive life terms without the possibility of parole, plus an additional 50 years for the firearm charges. The judge told him directly that he would die in prison, calling him selfish and unrepentant. For Anna's family, the sentence offered some measure of justice, but no real comfort. Their daughter, sister, and friend was gone forever, along with the young man who happened to be at her side that day. For Ali, the sentence marked the end of a short, troubled journey from TikTok stardom to life in a maximum security prison. The story serves as a grim reminder that fame can disguise deeper problems, and that unchecked jealousy can turn into irreversible tragedy. Ali Abulaban will never again return to TikTok or see freedom. His daughter, now left to grow up without either parent, is perhaps the most tragic victim of all. What was once a family comedy brand is now a cautionary tale about obsession, violence, and the dark side of social media fame. And Ali Abalábán isn't the only influencer whose crimes ended with a life behind bars. The next case takes us across the Atlantic, to the UK, where a TikTok star's pursuit of status and revenge ended in a deadly car chase. Number 2. Mahek Bukhari. She styled herself as a glamorous TikTok influencer, showing off clothes, cars, and a taste of the celebrity lifestyle. But behind the curated posts and social media smiles, Mahek Bukhari was hiding a secret that would eventually destroy her future. In February 2022, a late-night car chase through the streets of Leicestershire turned into one of the most shocking murder cases the UK had seen in years. At the center of it all was Mahek, her mother, and a plan that went far beyond petty online drama. Mahek Bukhari was just 24 years old at the time. She had grown up in Stoke-on-Trent and built a modest following on TikTok, where she posted fashion tips, lifestyle videos, and aspirational content. While she wasn't one of the biggest stars on the platform, she projected an image of success that made her appear larger than life. She often showcased luxury items, glamorous nights out, and the kind of lifestyle that drew attention from young fans. But away from TikTok, Mahek's home life was tense. Her mother, Ansarine, was in a complicated relationship with a man named Saqib Hussain. That relationship would spiral into betrayal, blackmail, and violence, pulling Mahek directly into the middle. Saqib Hussain, along with his friend Hashim Ijazuddin, became entangled in Mahek's life after Saqib allegedly threatened to expose details of his affair with Ansarine. He claimed he would reveal private messages and photographs unless the Bukharis paid him. Fearing reputational damage and public humiliation, Mahek and her mother devised a plan to silence him. They promised to meet Saqib and Hashim late at night under the pretense of working things out. In reality, it was a setup. Mahek and Ansarine gathered a group of accomplices, and together they lured the two men to a meeting spot near Leicester. On the night of February 11th, 2022, Saqib and Hashim arrived in a silver Skoda. Soon after, Mahek and her group showed up in two cars, including an Audi and a Seat Leon. What followed was not a conversation, but a high-speed pursuit. Witnesses later testified to seeing cars racing through the dark, weaving in and out of traffic, and chasing the Skoda along the A46 dual carriageway. At one point, one of the pursuing cars deliberately rammed into the back of the Skoda, sending it careening off the road. The car slammed into a central barrier, erupted in flames, and within minutes, both Saqib and Hashim were dead. Investigators quickly pieced together that this was no accident. Emergency calls revealed that Saqib had dialed 999 during the chase, desperately telling dispatchers that men in two cars were trying to kill him. That recording became a key piece of evidence, capturing his terror in his final moments and confirming that the crash was intentional. Forensic analysis of the wreckage showed clear impact points, consistent with the Skoda being forced off the road. Within days, police arrested Mahek, her mother, and several associates on suspicion of murder. The case captured national attention in the UK. The idea that a young TikTok influencer could be involved in such a calculated killing stunned the public. When the trial began in 2023, prosecutors painted a damning picture. They argued that Mahek used her social media bravado to mask a reckless, manipulative side, and that she helped orchestrate the attack to protect her mother's reputation. The defense tried to cast doubt, suggesting Mahek had not intended for anyone to die, but the evidence was overwhelming. Text messages, witness statements, and the chilling 999 call all pointed to a deliberate plan. In August 2023, after months of testimony, the jury returned guilty verdicts. Mahek Bukhari and her mother Ansarine were convicted of the murders of Saqib Hussain and Hashim Ijazuddin. Several other co-defendants were found guilty of manslaughter. The judge, Justice Saini, did not mince words during sentencing. He told Mahek that her tawdry fame and utterly self-obsessed behavior had contributed to a mindset where she treated human lives as disposable. He described the crime as a cold and calculated act driven by vanity and fear of exposure. The sentences reflected the severity of the crime. Mahek Bukhari was sentenced to life in prison, with a minimum term of 31 years and 8 months before she can even be considered for release. Her mother, Ansarine, received life with a minimum of 26 years and 9 months. For two men in their early 20s who lost their lives in that fiery crash, justice came in the form of some of the longest sentences handed down in recent UK history for a case linked to influencer culture. The fallout was immense. TikTok accounts dedicated to Mahek's glamorous life were flooded with comments of shock and outrage. News outlets highlighted the disturbing contrast between her carefully curated online persona and the real-life conspiracy that ended in murder. The case has since become a cautionary tale about the dangers of social media image, reckless ambition, and the willingness to sacrifice others to maintain appearances. Today, Mahek sits in a British prison, her once active TikTok silent, and her name now forever associated not with fame, but with infamy. She will be middle-aged by the time she is even eligible for parole, and there is no guarantee she will ever walk free again. What was once an attempt to live a glamorous life on social media instead ended in violence, ruined families, and a future locked behind bars. While Mahek's crimes shocked the UK, another case in the United States revealed how a seemingly wholesome family influencer was hiding one of the darkest secrets of all. Number 3. Ruby Franca. For years, she was known as the wholesome face of family life on YouTube. Ruby Franca built an audience of over 2.5 million subscribers on her channel, 8 Passengers, where she filmed the everyday routines of raising 6 children in suburban Utah. Viewers saw her as a devoted mother, sharing advice about discipline, parenting struggles, and the ups and downs of family life. Her channel was part of the booming family vlogger scene, where ordinary households became digital celebrities. To her fans, Ruby seemed like a trustworthy guide on how to raise children. But in August 2023, the facade collapsed. What appeared to be a picture-perfect family was hiding an environment of cruelty, control, and abuse that shocked the world when it came to light. Ruby Franca had started her YouTube channel in 2015, part of a wave of family vloggers who built careers by turning daily life into entertainment. At its peak, 8 Passengers attracted millions of viewers who tuned in to watch parenting tips, family vacations, and moments of faith-driven advice. Ruby presented herself as a strict but loving mother, unafraid to enforce discipline. But over time, even some loyal fans began to raise concerns. In certain videos, Ruby's approach to parenting seemed unusually harsh. She once spoke on camera about withholding food from one child as punishment, and another time described making her son sleep on a beanbag for months after a minor infraction. These moments were brushed aside by some as strict parenting, but for others, they were red flags. Those red flags became undeniable in late summer 2023. On August 30th, one of Ruby's children escaped from a home owned by Jodi Hildebrandt, Ruby's business partner and founder of a counseling group called Connections. The child appeared emaciated, covered in wounds, and went to a neighbor's house begging for food and water. That neighbor immediately called police. When officers arrived, they discovered shocking conditions inside the home: children malnourished, with visible injuries, and evidence of extreme deprivation. Ruby Franca and Jodi Hildebrandt were both arrested that same day on multiple counts of aggravated child abuse. The case horrified the public. News outlets reported that prosecutors compared the living conditions in Ruby's household to a concentration camp-like setting. The children were allegedly starved, tied up with ropes, and isolated from the outside world. The contrast between Ruby's smiling YouTube persona and the reality behind closed doors created a wave of outrage across the United States. People who had once trusted her parenting advice were left questioning how so many warning signs had gone unaddressed for so long. In court, the details were laid out with devastating clarity. Prosecutors presented evidence of prolonged abuse, explaining how Ruby and Hildebrandt enforced a regime of punishment that left children severely underweight and emotionally traumatized. Defense attorneys tried to argue that Ruby had been influenced by Hildebrandt, who they described as manipulative, but Ruby herself admitted guilt. In February 2024, she accepted a plea deal and pleaded guilty to 4 counts of aggravated child abuse. Each count carried a sentence of 1 to 15 years under Utah law. At sentencing, the judge imposed the terms consecutively, meaning Ruby faced up to 30 years in prison if she served the maximum on each count. Prosecutors described her actions as horrible acts of child abuse, while the court emphasized the lasting damage inflicted on her children. Outside the courthouse, crowds of onlookers and reporters gathered, with many expressing disbelief that the same woman they had watched online as a parenting role model could be guilty of such cruelty. Ruby's fall from grace was not just a personal tragedy, but a public reckoning for the culture of family vlogging. The case raised tough questions about whether children featured in monetized content are adequately protected, and whether platforms like YouTube have a responsibility to intervene when obvious warning signs appear. Viewers who once left supportive comments under Ruby's videos now flooded social media with messages of anger and heartbreak. Former fans said they felt complicit for having supported her channel without realizing what was happening behind the camera. For Ruby Franca, life as a YouTube star is over. Instead of uploading videos to millions of subscribers, she now sits in a prison cell, facing decades of incarceration. For her children, the path to healing will likely take years, if not a lifetime. And for the wider world, the case remains a grim reminder that the polished images seen online can hide painful truths. Ruby Franca's story is one of betrayal at the deepest level. A woman who built her fame on presenting the ideal family life instead subjected her own children to unimaginable suffering. She traded authenticity for control, and when the truth finally surfaced, it brought her entire online empire crashing down. Now she will spend much of her life behind bars, remembered not as a family vlogger, but as a cautionary example of the dangers lurking beneath social media perfection. And Ruby Franca wasn't the only influencer who deceived millions while committing terrible crimes. The next case follows a young man who turned his online stunts into real-life tragedy, leaving 6 innocent people dead. Number 4. Noah Galley. He wanted to be known for fast cars and risky stunts, the kind of content that racks up quick likes on TikTok and Instagram. But at just 17 years old, Noah Galley crossed a line that no follower could ever forgive. One night in January 2022, he slammed his BMW into another vehicle at a speed of 151 miles per hour. The crash killed 6 people instantly, turning a teenager's reckless chase for online clout into one of the deadliest influencer-related crimes in recent memory. Noah Thomas Galla grew up in Wellington, Florida, in a comfortable suburban environment. Like many teens, he gravitated to social media, especially platforms where speed, danger, and luxury could translate into quick fame. He filmed himself behind the wheel of high-end cars, revving engines, and flying down stretches of road at breathtaking speeds. For his growing online audience, it was thrilling. For his friends, it was concerning. One of his signature gimmicks was to post challenges, asking followers to guess how fast he was driving, sometimes offering small cash rewards to those who guessed correctly. It blurred the line between entertainment and dangerous reality, and in 2022, that blurred line cost 6 innocent lives. On January 27, 2022, Galley got behind the wheel of his white BMW M5. That night, according to investigators, he accelerated to 151 miles per hour on a stretch of US Highway 441 in Delray Beach. Ahead of him, a gray Nissan Rogue carried 6 farm workers returning home from a day's labor. They never saw him coming. At that speed, the BMW smashed into the back of the Nissan with unimaginable force, crushing the vehicle and sending it into a fiery wreck. All 6 passengers inside the Nissan were killed instantly. For first responders, the scene was devastating, described as one of the worst crashes in Palm Beach County history. Police quickly identified Gal as the driver. At first, he was treated for minor injuries, but his phone and online presence told a deeper story. Investigators found videos of him bragging about his speeding, the Guess My Speed challenges, and posts showing the same BMW that caused the crash. Prosecutors argued that this was not an accident, but the inevitable result of a pattern of reckless behavior fueled by social media validation. In the weeks that followed, grief spread through the community as the victims were laid to rest. The 6 farm workers were remembered as hardworking immigrants supporting their families, their lives cut short in a senseless act. Because Noah was only 17 at the time, questions arose about whether he would be tried as a juvenile or an adult. Prosecutors pushed for adult charges, arguing that the scale of the tragedy demanded accountability. The court agreed. He was charged with 6 counts of vehicular homicide, each one carrying serious prison time. Legal experts noted that if convicted at trial, he could face a minimum of 55 years in prison, effectively a life sentence. The stakes were as high as they come. For more than 2 years, the case moved slowly through the courts. Families of the victims waited for justice, while Noah's attorneys negotiated. In January 2025, just before trial was set to begin, a plea deal was reached. Noah Gal pleaded guilty to all 6 counts of vehicular homicide. The plea spared him the possibility of decades in prison, but still carried a heavy cost. The judge sentenced him to 12 years and 6 months in state prison, followed by 15 years of probation. He also ordered Noah to create a public service announcement about the dangers of reckless driving, ensuring that the same platform he once used for dangerous stunts would now be used to warn others. They had lost brothers, fathers, and sons in the blink of an eye. During court hearings, some spoke about their grief, describing empty chairs at dinner tables and the financial hardship left behind. Advocates said the case highlighted how social media clout chasing can have devastating real-world consequences, especially when teenagers are encouraged by online followers to push boundaries. Noah's case spread far beyond Florida. National media picked it up, and headlines described him as the TikTok speed influencer who killed 6 people. Commentators debated whether 12 years was too lenient given the scale of the tragedy, while others pointed out that he was only a teenager at the time of the crime. Either way, the story became a warning to millions. When the pursuit of likes and attention collides with real-world danger, the results can be catastrophic. Today, Noah sits in a Florida prison serving a sentence that will keep him behind bars through much of his 20s and into his 30s. By the time he is released, social media will have moved on, his following long gone, his reputation permanently destroyed. Instead of a career built on fast cars and viral videos, he is remembered as the teenager whose online stunts ended 6 lives and cost him his freedom. The case of Noah Gal is a chilling reminder that actions made for the camera can have deadly consequences. What began as a teenager showing off for his audience became a crime scene that devastated families and scarred a community. For 6 men who never made it home that night, the price of one influencer's recklessness was everything. Noah's story exposed the deadly risks of chasing online fame through dangerous stunts. Another influencer's fall from grace revealed how someone adored on television and social media was secretly exploiting young fans. Number 5. Jeremiah Harris. He became a household name almost overnight. Jeremiah Harris, better known as Jerry, was the breakout star of the Netflix docuseries Cheer. His positivity, charisma, and larger-than-life personality made him one of the most beloved figures on the show. He built an enormous following on Instagram, quickly gaining millions of fans who were inspired by his energy and charm. To many, Jerry represented joy, encouragement, and the best of youth culture. But in 2020, the image came crashing down. What began as a story of hope and fame ended with criminal charges, national outrage, and a prison sentence that revealed a darker reality behind the screen. Jerry Harris was born in 1999 and grew up in Illinois. From a young age, he faced personal challenges, including the death of his mother when he was still a child. Despite hardship, he found purpose in cheerleading. He became part of the Navarro College cheer team, and when Netflix launched Cheer in 2020, Jerry's infectious smile and supportive personality made him an instant fan favorite. He appeared on talk shows, rubbed shoulders with celebrities, and even interviewed public figures on red carpets. His rise symbolized the way reality television and social media could transform someone into a national sensation. But while Jerry's public image shone bright, behind the scenes, he was misusing his fame and influence. By September 2020, reports surfaced that Jerry had been engaging in inappropriate online communication with underage fans. Federal investigators quickly became involved. What they discovered shocked those who had admired him. Court documents later revealed that Jerry had repeatedly contacted teenagers online, pressuring them for images and conversations that were entirely unlawful. Prosecutors argued that his celebrity status and charm made it easier for him to cross boundaries with fans who looked up to him. The revelation shattered his once wholesome reputation. Almost immediately after the allegations came to light, Netflix distanced itself and sponsors cut ties. For fans who had seen him as the heart of cheer, the news was devastating. The idea that someone who had been marketed as a role model could use fame to take advantage of young supporters left audiences stunned and angry. Parents who had encouraged their children to watch cheer suddenly saw the series in a different light, and the show itself addressed the case in later episodes. In December 2020, Jerry was arrested on federal charges. The legal process was slow, complicated by the pandemic, but prosecutors continued building their case. By February 2022, Jerry pleaded guilty to 2 counts related to unlawful online conduct with minors. In court, his defense team highlighted his difficult upbringing and asked for leniency, suggesting that he needed treatment and a second chance. The prosecution, however, emphasized the seriousness of his actions and the deep harm inflicted on vulnerable teenagers. The sentencing took place in July 2022. In a Chicago courtroom, Jerry Harris was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison, followed by 8 years of supervised release. The judge acknowledged his difficult past, but made clear that his actions had betrayed the trust of his fans and caused lasting damage to those involved. Prosecutors stated that Harris had abused his position as a rising celebrity, turning what should have been a positive influence into an opportunity for exploitation. The fallout was enormous. News outlets across the country covered the case extensively. Social media platforms were flooded with shock, disappointment, and anger from those who had once admired him. Cheer, once celebrated as a feel-good hit, became permanently associated with the scandal. For the victims and their families, the sentence brought some accountability, though no punishment could undo the harm done. Jerry Harris now serves his sentence in federal prison. He is no longer the smiling, upbeat star millions once adored. Instead, he is a cautionary tale about how fame and influence can be abused, and how quickly a carefully constructed public image can collapse when the truth comes out. The story of Jerry Harris reminds audiences that even those presented as role models can harbor dangerous secrets. The impact of this case continues to ripple through both the cheerleading community and the world of online influencers. It raised questions about the responsibility of platforms and production companies to protect vulnerable fans, and about how quickly unchecked celebrity status can lead to abuse of power. While Jerry once represented hope and encouragement, today he stands as an example of betrayal and downfall. His 12-year sentence ensures that he will remain behind bars for much of his adult life, serving time for actions that undermine the very trust his fame was built on. For many who once looked up to him, the story is not just about the crimes, but about the disillusionment of seeing someone they admired turn out to be the opposite of what they believed. And while Jerry Harris's case showed how a rising star could misuse fame in devastating ways, another influencer built an entire empire on luxury and wealth, only for investigators to uncover one of the largest fraud schemes ever linked to social media. Number 6. Ramon Abbas, better known as Hush Puppy. To millions of followers on Instagram, he seemed like the definition of success. Ramon Abbas, who called himself Ray Hush Puppy, filled his feed with photos of private jets, luxury cars, designer clothes, and 5-star hotels. He appeared to have everything: wealth, fame, and influence. But behind the glamour was an elaborate criminal empire built not on hard work or legitimate business, but on some of the most sophisticated fraud schemes ever uncovered. In 2020, federal agents tracked him down. By 2022, a U.S. court declared him one of the most prolific money launderers in the world, sentencing him to more than a decade in prison and stripping away the empire he had flaunted online. Ramon Abbas was born in Nigeria in 1982. He came from humble beginnings, but by his 30s, he had reinvented himself as a social media icon. On Instagram, he projected an image of unstoppable success. With more than 2 million followers, Hush Puppy became famous for showcasing rare supercars, custom designer outfits, and first-class flights to exotic destinations. For young fans around the world, he seemed like proof that ambition and hustle could buy anything. But those displays of wealth were never funded by legitimate business. They were fueled by global cybercrime. According to investigators, Hush Puppy was at the center of an international network that specialized in business email compromise scams, bank fraud, and money laundering. These schemes targeted corporations, banks, and even governments. Hackers would infiltrate email systems, tricking companies into wiring funds to fraudulent accounts. Abbas then helped launder the proceeds, moving millions of dollars through shell companies and foreign accounts. In one instance, prosecutors said his group attempted to steal $124 million from an English Premier League soccer club, though the plan was foiled before completion. In another, they defrauded a major law firm in the United States. The FBI estimated that over an 18-month period, Abbas and his network attempted to launder roughly $300 million. His arrest came in June 2020 in Dubai. Local authorities, working with the FBI, raided his luxury apartment in the Palazzo Versace complex. Inside, they found evidence of his crimes, hard drives, smartphones, and documents linking him to countless fraudulent transactions. Photos from the raid showed luxury cars lined up outside, all purchased with stolen money. For many of his Instagram followers, the news was shocking. The man they had seen as a lifestyle guru was suddenly exposed as a global fraudster. After his extradition to the United States, Abbas faced federal charges in Los Angeles. In July 2021, he pleaded guilty to one count of conspiracy to engage in money laundering. Court documents revealed the scope of his operations, including attempts to steal millions from a Qatari businessman under the guise of securing loans for a development project. Prosecutors emphasized that Hushpuppi was not just a small player. He was central to a vast criminal network that caused real financial harm across multiple continents. In November 2022, the case reached its conclusion. A federal judge sentenced Ramon Abbas to 135 months in federal prison, which equals just over 11 years. He was also ordered to pay $1.7 million in restitution to two major fraud victims. During sentencing, the judge described him as one of the most prolific money launderers in the world, a man who had exploited global networks for personal gain while flaunting his crimes to millions online. The reaction to the sentencing was widespread. Media outlets across the US, UK, Nigeria, and beyond covered the story, noting how Hushpuppi had used Instagram fame to mask his crimes. For law enforcement, the case was a rare example of catching a fraudster who had managed to operate on such a massive scale while openly displaying the spoils. For the online world, it was a reminder of how carefully crafted influencer personas can hide corruption and deception. Even after his conviction, Hushpuppi's case continues to spark discussion. Documentaries and scripted projects are reportedly in development, focusing on the intersection of influencer culture and international crime. His story represents the extreme end of a troubling trend, where the pursuit of fame and luxury on social media drives people to commit serious crimes. Today, Hushpuppi serves his sentence in a U.S. federal prison. The luxury lifestyle he once flaunted is gone. No private jets, no designer suits, no sports cars. Instead, he faces more than a decade behind bars and the legacy of a social media empire that was built on fraud. For many of his victims, restitution will only partially repair the damage, but the case stands as a warning. Not everything you see online is real, and sometimes the price of pretending is prison. Ramon Abbas's story is not just about fraud. It is about the way social media can be weaponized to lure, manipulate, and mislead. What once looked like the glamorous life of a self-made millionaire was, in truth, the mask of a criminal operation that stretched across the globe. Now, stripped of the wealth and the stage he once commanded, Hushpuppi is remembered not for his style, but for the sentence that ensures his influence will never be the same. And while Hushpuppi's downfall showed how social media can be used to mask massive fraud, another YouTube star's story revealed how an online musician used his platform to exploit the very fans who made him famous. Number 7. Austin Jones. In the mid-2000s, YouTube was filled with aspiring musicians hoping to build an audience online. Among them was Austin Jones, a young singer from Illinois who gained popularity for his a cappella covers and original songs. His channel attracted over 500,000 subscribers, many of them teenagers drawn to his clean-cut image and upbeat music. To the public, Jones looked like another rising star in the growing world of YouTube performers. But in 2017, investigators revealed that behind his public persona, he was using his platform in ways that crossed into serious criminal behavior. 2 years later, he was sentenced to a decade in federal prison. Austin Jones was born in 1992 and grew up in the suburbs of Chicago. He began uploading to YouTube in 2007, slowly building an audience with covers of popular songs and arrangements that highlighted his vocal ability. By 2014, his subscriber count had surged, and he began touring, performing live shows, and releasing original material. He built a reputation as a wholesome performer, and fans, many of them young, saw him as approachable and safe. This image, however, was not the full story. In 2017, federal authorities began investigating Jones after reports surfaced about his private online interactions with underage fans. According to court records, Jones had used his position as an influencer to pressure teenagers into sending him videos that no adult should have ever requested. The FBI became involved, and after gathering evidence, agents arrested him in June of that year. Jones was charged with multiple counts related to the receipt of unlawful material from minors. His arrest sent shockwaves through the YouTube community. Many of his peers immediately distanced themselves, and his channel, once a place for music and positivity, was now the focus of intense public outrage. The legal process unfolded over the next 2 years. Jones initially denied some of the accusations, but the evidence was overwhelming. Prosecutors laid out how he had targeted young fans who looked up to him, manipulating them into complying with requests that were both exploitative and illegal. The case revealed a troubling abuse of trust. The same audience that had given him his career was the one he betrayed. His defense team argued that he was a first-time offender who had struggled with personal issues, but the prosecution emphasized the severity of his actions and the lasting harm to the victims. In February 2019, Austin Jones pleaded guilty to a federal felony charge of receiving child sexual abuse material. 3 months later, in May 2019, he faced sentencing in a Chicago courtroom. The judge handed down a sentence of 10 years in federal prison, citing the deliberate and repeated nature of his conduct. The court also ordered that after serving his prison term, Jones would remain under supervision for an extended period to ensure that he could not reoffend. For the victims and their families, the sentencing brought accountability, though the damage caused by his actions could never be fully undone. The reaction from the public was swift. News outlets across the country reported on the case, highlighting how someone with a seemingly harmless reputation had been engaged in serious criminal conduct behind the scenes. Former fans expressed shock and disappointment, with many saying they felt betrayed by an artist they once admired. The YouTube community, already under scrutiny for the way it handled safety and content, faced renewed questions about how creators with large youth audiences were vetted and monitored. For Jones himself, the sentence ended his career permanently. His music videos and covers were quickly removed from major platforms, and his name became synonymous with one of the most disturbing scandals in YouTube's history. He is now serving his sentence in federal prison, with a projected release date in 2027 at the earliest. Even after release, his status as a registered offender will follow him for life, ensuring he will never return to a position of influence. The case of Austin Jones is often cited as a cautionary tale. It shows how someone can use the power of online celebrity in destructive ways, taking advantage of the trust that comes with fame. It also underscores the importance of protecting young audiences in spaces where influencers can have direct access to their fans. For YouTube, the scandal highlighted the need for stricter oversight and better reporting mechanisms to catch misconduct before it spirals into criminal acts. Jones's downfall serves as a reminder that not all influencers use their platforms responsibly. Behind the music videos and the carefully curated persona was a man whose actions caused irreparable harm. His 10-year sentence, though lighter than what some had expected, made clear that there are consequences when fame is abused. For those who once followed him, the story is a bitter example of how appearances on social media can hide disturbing truths. Austin Jones will remain in prison until the late 2020s, long after his peers in the YouTube music scene have moved on. His name, once attached to upbeat songs and fan admiration, is now permanently linked with one of the darkest chapters in influencer culture. Austin Jones's case revealed how a YouTube career could be corrupted from within, Another influencer's downfall showed how Instagram fame, built on promises of generosity, was in reality covering up an elaborate scheme to defraud entire communities. Number 8. Ashley Grayson. On Instagram, she called herself a self-made millionaire, posting photos of luxury cars, designer handbags, and motivational messages about success. Ashley Grayson branded herself as an online business coach, someone who had cracked the code to making money through courses and digital marketing. To her followers, she was a story of inspiration, a woman who had built wealth from scratch and wanted to teach others how to do the same. But in 2021, behind the curated posts and paid seminars, she made a choice that revealed a very different side. What began as an online feud with rivals escalated into a real-world plot that ended with a federal conviction. Ashley Grayson, then in her mid-30s, lived in Dallas, Texas. She marketed herself as a girl boss entrepreneur who could turn social media into a business empire. By selling courses on financial freedom, she built a loyal following of clients who believed she had the tools to make them wealthy too. She showed off luxury items on Instagram as proof of her success, presenting herself as untouchable. But as her online profile grew, so did her disputes. By 2021, she was locked in a bitter feud with another course creator, exchanging insults and accusations online. What could have remained digital drama soon became something much more dangerous. According to federal prosecutors, Ashley decided that her rival was more than just an annoyance. She saw her as a threat that had to be eliminated. But she didn't stop there. Investigators later revealed that Ashley also plotted against 2 other people in her circle, a former boyfriend and another critic who had spoken publicly against her. Rather than confronting them in the open, Ashley sought to make the problem disappear permanently. She approached a couple and asked if they would carry out violent attacks on her behalf. What she didn't know was that the couple she had contacted would go straight to the police. Working with investigators, they recorded their conversations with Ashley. On video, she discussed her willingness to pay for the murders and how much she was willing to offer. The evidence was damning. For prosecutors, it was as close to a confession as one could get. For her followers, who once believed in her as a business mentor, it was shocking proof that the glamorous Instagram coach had crossed into criminal territory. In 2022, federal authorities formally charged Ashley Grayson with a murder-for-hire scheme. The case drew headlines not only because of its shocking content, but also because of the social media angle. Here was a woman who had profited by presenting herself as an example of online success, now accused of plotting deadly violence against her rivals. As her trial approached in 2024, more details emerged about her double life. Prosecutors described her as manipulative and self-obsessed, someone who would go to any length to protect her image and silence those who challenged her. During the trial, the jury was shown the recordings of Ashley negotiating with the supposed hitmen. They heard her discuss payments and targets, leaving little doubt about her intent. The defense attempted to argue that she had been misunderstood or lured into a trap, but the evidence was overwhelming. After deliberations, the jury convicted Ashley Grayson of murder for hire. In March 2024, a federal judge handed down her sentence. Ashley Grayson was given the maximum penalty of 120 months in federal prison, equal to 10 years with no possibility of parole. The U.S. Attorney's Office released a statement after the sentencing, warning that online feuds and senseless rivalries bled into the real world in this case. The statement emphasized that using violence to settle internet disputes would never be tolerated. The downfall was dramatic. Just months earlier, Ashley had been telling her Instagram followers that she was living proof of success, encouraging them to invest in her courses and chase their dreams. Now, she was a federal inmate, her online presence gone, her reputation in ruins. What she thought would be the solution to her problems had instead exposed her as someone willing to destroy lives to protect her own image. Her story became widely discussed on social media, with former fans and critics sharing their disbelief. Many said they had always questioned her claims of millionaire status, pointing out inconsistencies in her business model. Others expressed shock that she would go so far as to attempt something so extreme. For the true crime community, Ashley's case quickly became a cautionary tale of how ego, greed, and social media rivalries can push someone over the edge. Today, Ashley Grayson serves her time in a federal facility. She will be nearly 45 years old by the time she is released, and she will return to a world where her brand is permanently destroyed. The lessons she once claimed to sell about success and empowerment have been replaced with a legacy of deceit, betrayal, and violence. The case of Ashley Grayson shows how the pursuit of image and influence can spiral into criminality. By trying to silence her rivals, she lost everything: her freedom, her credibility, and the empire she built online. Instead of being remembered as a millionaire mentor, she is now remembered as the influencer who tried to turn online feuds into real-world violence. Ashley's case showed how online rivalries can lead to real-world crime. Another influencer known for handing out cash on Instagram was exposed as a con artist who defrauded his own community out of millions. Number 9. Jabera J. Mazzini Igbera. For a time, he looked like the internet's most generous man. Jabera Igbera, better known as Jay Mazzini, became famous on Instagram for posting viral videos of himself handing out thick stacks of cash to strangers. He filmed himself giving money to fast food workers, delivery drivers, and people in need, presenting an image of kindness, faith, and wealth. His clips attracted millions of views and hundreds of thousands of followers. To many, he seemed like a devout businessman who had made it big and wanted to give back. But in 2021, the generosity was revealed as an illusion. Behind the staged giveaways was a web of fraud schemes that stole millions of dollars from unsuspecting victims, including members of his own community. Jay Mazzini grew up in New Jersey in a tight-knit Muslim family. By his late 20s, he was branding himself online as a successful entrepreneur with a heart of gold. He often paired his cash-giving stunts with inspirational captions, quoting faith and family values. He launched a clothing line called Mazzini Italia and styled himself as a model of prosperity and devotion. But the wealth he flaunted was not the product of legitimate business. According to prosecutors, Igbera was orchestrating Ponzi schemes and cryptocurrency scams on a massive scale. Between 2019 and 2021, Igbera lured investors with promises of safe, above-market returns. He told victims he was running successful ventures and would personally handle their money. In reality, he used new investors' funds to pay back earlier ones, the classic hallmark of a Ponzi scheme. Over time, the amount stolen grew into the millions. He targeted members of his own religious community in New York, exploiting trust and friendship. Many victims described how they believed they were helping a fellow believer succeed, only to later learn their savings had vanished. As his Instagram fame grew, Igbera added another layer to his fraud. He began advertising cryptocurrency deals, claiming he would buy Bitcoin or other coins from followers at prices well above market value. Excited by the chance to make easy profit, dozens of people sent him cryptocurrency. Instead of paying them back as promised, Igbera sent fake wire receipts or partial payments, pocketing the rest. Court documents showed that he stole at least $8 million through these schemes alone. The generous man online was, in truth, draining the accounts of those who trusted him. By 2021, investigators were closing in. Victims began filing complaints when the promised payments never arrived. Federal agents uncovered forged documents, fake bank transfers, and text messages in which Igbera reassured people that money was on the way. In March 2021, he was arrested on federal fraud charges. News of his arrest spread quickly, shocking followers who had once shared his videos as examples of generosity. Overnight, the Instagram star who had built a reputation on giving was revealed as someone who had been taking all along. The legal process unfolded over the next 3 years. Prosecutors charged him with wire fraud conspiracy, and money laundering. In April 2024, Igbera pleaded guilty to all counts. At his sentencing, the U.S. Attorney's Office said plainly that the prosecution of Igbera unmasked him as a fraudster, stressing that he had shamelessly used his faith and fame to manipulate victims. The court agreed. He was sentenced to 84 months in federal prison, equal to 7 years behind bars, and ordered to forfeit $10 million. He also faces additional restitution, meaning he will owe money to those he defrauded long after his release. The sentence reflected both the financial scale of the crime and the betrayal of trust. Victims were not just faceless investors. They included people from his own mosque, friends who had known him for years, and ordinary followers who had believed his promises. Many lost life savings, retirement funds, or college money set aside for their children. The damage went far beyond numbers in a bank account. The case also became a widely discussed true crime story online. Commentators pointed out the contrast between the staged generosity of his videos and the hidden fraud behind them. His downfall revealed how easily social media personas can be manipulated, and how followers are often left unable to separate reality from performance. For Instagram, the case highlighted how platforms can be exploited by scammers who build influence through flashy displays and emotional storytelling. Today, Jabera J. Mazzini Igbara sits in federal prison, stripped of the image he spent years building. The man once hailed as an inspirational giver is remembered instead as an influencer who conned his way to internet fame. He will be nearly 40 when released, returning to a world where his reputation is permanently destroyed and his debts remain unpaid. His story is a reminder that not every generous gesture online is what it seems. Sometimes the hand giving out money on camera is the same one taking it away when the cameras are off. For those who once saw him as a role model, the truth was both painful and sobering. Behind the viral moments was a man willing to betray his own community for profit. Number 10. Cameron Herron. In 2018, a quiet Florida neighborhood became the scene of a tragedy that would later capture worldwide attention. At the center was Cameron Herron, a young man whose sleek black Ford Mustang and budding TikTok presence made him look like just another teenager chasing speed and social media clout. But one reckless decision on the road cost 2 lives and changed his forever. What followed was not only a devastating case of vehicular homicide, but also one of the most viral sentencing stories in recent history. Cameron Herron was born in 1999 in Texas before moving with his family to Tampa, Florida. By the time he graduated from Tampa Catholic High School in 2018, he seemed set for a normal future. Friends described him as quiet and polite. His parents had bought him a new Ford Mustang as a graduation gift, a car that quickly became central to his identity. Like many young influencers, Herron also experimented with TikTok and Instagram, sharing clips of his car and lifestyle. He wasn't a massive online star, but enough people noticed his content for him to feel part of the social media car culture that glamorized speed and performance. On the morning of May 23, 2018, Cameron Herron and his friend, John Barano, were driving side by side down Bayshore Boulevard, a popular waterfront road in Tampa. Witnesses later said the two appeared to be racing, accelerating well beyond the speed limit. At the same time, a 24-year-old woman named Jessica Reisinger Raubenolt was pushing her 1-year-old daughter Lilia in a stroller across the boulevard. They were on vacation, visiting family in Florida. In seconds, tragedy struck. Herron's Mustang veered into them at high speed. Both mother and daughter were killed instantly. The community was horrified. Bayshore Boulevard was known as a scenic stretch for joggers, walkers, and families. In an instant, it had become the site of one of the deadliest crashes in the city's memory. Police immediately took both Herron and Barano into custody. Investigators determined that Herron had been driving over 100 miles per hour in a zone where the limit was just 45. The story dominated local headlines, with residents demanding accountability for reckless street racing that had long plagued the area. The legal process unfolded over the next 3 years. Herron was charged with 2 counts of vehicular homicide and unlawful racing. Prosecutors argued that his actions weren't a mere accident, but the foreseeable result of reckless choices. They emphasized the devastating impact on the victim's family, who had lost a young mother and child in a moment of senseless thrill-seeking. Herron's defense acknowledged his responsibility, but asked the court to consider his youth, his clean record, and the possibility of rehabilitation. The case drew even more attention because of Cameron's growing presence online. As his trial approached, TikTok videos of the handsome teenager went viral. Entire fan communities began posting edits of him in court, some sympathizing with his situation, others condemning the idolization of someone responsible for 2 deaths. By the time sentencing arrived, the hashtag Justice for Cameron Herron had amassed millions of views, with people across the world debating whether he deserved a lighter sentence or the maximum punishment allowed. On April 8, 2021, the verdict came down. In a Tampa courtroom, Cameron Herron was sentenced to 24 years in state prison. The judge delivered a stern message, saying the sentence reflected both the magnitude of the tragedy and the need to deter others from reckless street racing. Jessica Reisinger Raubenold's husband gave an emotional statement, describing the irreplaceable loss of his wife and child. For the victim's family, the sentencing provided accountability, though it could never repair the damage done. The sentence was one of the longest ever handed down in Florida for vehicular homicide. Some called it too harsh for a teenager with no prior record. Others argued it was appropriate given the devastation caused. The online conversation exploded, with international outlets from the US to the Middle East covering the case. Herron's name trended worldwide, and TikTok accounts dedicated entirely to his situation sprang up, many portraying him as both villain and victim. It became one of the rare criminal cases to go truly viral across global social media. Today, Cameron Herron is serving his sentence in Florida State Prison. He will be in his 40s before he is eligible for release, spending much of his adult life behind bars. His case is still debated, both for the severity of the punishment and for the strange way it captured the internet's imagination. Supporters argue that his youth should have weighed more heavily, while critics point to the permanent loss of life caused by his reckless driving. The story of Cameron Herron is ultimately about choices and consequences. A young man, a fast car, and a moment of thrill turned into a lifetime of regret and heartbreak. For Jessica and Lilia's family, no sentence could equal their loss. For the city of Tampa, the case brought new crackdowns on street racing and a sobering reminder of how quickly reckless driving can destroy lives. And for the online world, it showed how even a courtroom tragedy can become entangled with influencer culture, with millions watching, sharing, and debating. A case far beyond its local origins. With Cameron Herron's 24-year sentence, this list comes full circle. From fraud to violence to reckless ambition, these 10 cases reveal how influencer culture can hide dangerous truths, and how, for some, the pursuit of fame or thrill has led not to fortune, but to a prison cell.